Tonight, pandemic politics.
I trust vaccines, I trust scientists, but I don't trust Donald Trump.
The war of words heats up between the CDC director and his timeline on vaccines.
I think we're probably looking at late second quarter, third quarter, 2021.
And pushback from the White House.
I believe he was confused.
This after the remnants of Hurricane Sally soaks parts of the American South.
The winds were high. It was whistling like I've never heard anything before.
Plus,
well, we don't really think of threats in terms of left and right at the FBI.
New warnings over threats to the homeland and the upcoming U.S. elections. And tackling big tech's bias. Some conservative groups accuse social media platforms of censorship. All this and more tonight on Faith Nation.
The president and others come out swinging over the politics of the pandemic. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm Jenna Browder.
Good evening, and I'm John Jessup. A top Democrat in Congress condemns the Attorney General for comparing the COVID lockdowns to slavery and a case of he said among the president and one of the administration's leading health officials.
This is the daily number of new coronavirus cases climbs roughly to 40,000. Here now, CBN White House correspondent Ben Kennedy. Ben, the flap has to do with the timing of a vaccine.
Yeah, Jenna, John, you're right. As we reported on Wednesday, the CDC director expects a vaccine somewhere in the November-December timeframe. But as you guys were just talking about, President Trump pushed back on that timing and even reports it won't be available to the general public.
I don't think he means that. I don't think when he said it, I believe he was confused.
Trump said CDC Director Robert Redfield was wrong when he told lawmakers that a vaccine won't be widely available until next year.
If you're asking me when is it going to be generally available to the American public so we can begin to take advantage of vaccine to get back to our regular life, I think we're probably looking at late second quarter, third quarter, 2021.
Not true, said White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows.
What we're shooting for is to try to make sure that we have 100 million doses in that first tranche. Our goal has been to have 300 million doses by January.
Trump also suggested that Redfield misspoke when he said wearing a mask is the most effective way to fight the virus.
It's not more effective by any means than a vaccine. If you ask him, he would probably say that he didn't understand the question.
The CDC released a statement saying the best defense we currently have against the virus are the important mitigation efforts of wearing a mask, washing your hands, and social distancing. But despite the nation's best efforts to contain the spread, the daily rate of new cases increased in 17 states and declined in 13. The U.S. seeing an average of about 37,000 daily over the past week.
In another day or so, we will go past the 200,000 mark of those who have died from the coronavirus. Millions of people infected. It didn't have to be that way.
And aside from the House Speaker, Joe Biden pushed back on the commander-in-chief, saying he's using politics to interfere with science after Trump accused both Biden and Harris of trying to scare Americans over the vaccine. John, Jenna?
All right, Ben Kennedy, thank you. Meanwhile, some good and bad news on the economy tonight. Another 860,000 Americans filed for first-time unemployment benefits last week. While that's a weekly decline in jobless claims, certainly good news there, 12.6 million people are still collecting traditional unemployment, compared to 1.7 million a year ago.
And joining us now is Mark Hamrick, Washington Bureau Chief and Senior Economic Analyst at Bankrate. Mark, it's always great to see you. As Jenna just said, unemployment claims are down. The figures, though, still high compared to even the worst of the Great Recession. Mark, what does that signal about the durability of the economic decline caused by the pandemic?
Well, it certainly signals to us, John and Jenna, that it's very much with us. I think it was very well put when we had Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell holding his virtual news conference that I participated in here this week, where he talked about the fact, encouraging news, that the recovery is underway, It seems to have gained some momentum here over the past 2 months or so, but that is not to say that there isn't more work to do for the U.S. economy. Think about the fact that we lost about 22 million jobs in March and April. We've recovered about half of those, and the weekly jobless claims that you referenced there are an indication that we still have more people who are entering into unemployment and are seeking those benefits.
Yeah, certainly encouraging news. One estimate, though, Mark, shows 60% of businesses that shut down in the pandemic have permanently closed up shop. In your opinion, Mark, have we scratched the surface when it comes to the depths of the economic pain caused by this virus?
Well, the worst of the downturn is behind us. We really pray that we will never experience anything along the magnitude of what we saw earlier this year when we saw those huge magnitude of job cuts March and April. But the other challenge that we're going to very much have with us for some time to come is the persistence of the downturn, admittedly less severe than what it was before, but still creating the risk of job loss going forward. So think about the fact that bars and restaurants, retail, the airlines are among those on the leading edge of the crisis still because of the limitations we're all facing related to the pandemic. And, as you led the show talking about the urgent search for a vaccine, that's one of the things that gives us hope that we'll be in a better place at some point, whenever that is. But even then, the availability of it, the usage of it, and it's going to be a question about the effectiveness of it, will be very much tied to the performance of the economy, our willingness to go back out into public and to spend money.
Mark, you're teeing me up perfectly. So speaking of the virus, yesterday, CDC director said it would be Q3 of 2021 before we have enough of a vaccine supply for Americans to return to, quote, regular life. How do you interpret that in terms of the economy and the effects on the average American?
Well, I think we're all looking every day for a new thread to basically hang our hats on to give us hope. And the reality is that this is a multifaceted effort that is global. It encompasses many companies, and there are a lot of unknowns. So I wouldn't want to necessarily make a big bet on what the timing of the vaccine will be, because I think we don't really fully understand that right now. But the reality is every day we get closer to it, and that means the economy will be closer to mounting a more robust recovery. And as Americans, I think, we share that hope. It's among the many things that unite us at this point.
Yeah, one thing that we've seen, Mark, is a strong housing market in response to these lockdowns. A new monthly report, though, shows U.S. home construction fell about 5% last month. How do you read that?
That's okay, because we're still basically up year over year on these numbers. And the weakness that we did see in this report was tied to so-called multifamily construction, meaning apartments and condos. The single family home component of this report looks pretty good. All this, remind you, is a function of record low interest rates. You can thank the Federal Reserve for that, as well as the bond market. And that is fed into record low mortgage rates. Great time to refinance. And for those who are qualified to buy a home, to get a mortgage, it's a good time for that as well. Another indication of this have and have not economy.
Mark, Congress in Washington has been at an impasse with this next tranche coronavirus relief package. Yesterday, the president tweeted that he thinks that the Republicans need to come up with even more money. Is it at all likely between now and Election Day that we'll see any movement with another package on economic relief?
Well, if I had to bet your money, John, I would have probably said that we would have looked for such legislation to have been passed by the end of July, when many of the benefits of the CARES Act were expiring. I think maybe the odds are about even right now. I think there's pressure on all sides to do something. Doesn't look great, particularly in an election year, for members of Congress and the White House to produce no further legislation. We know there is a high level of suffering and unemployment out there. And as we know also, the government's facing the prospect of running out of money by the end of the month. So at the very least, they need to pass a continuing resolution to keep the government in business.
All right, Mark Hamrick with Bankrate.com. It's always good to see you. We enjoy talking to you. Thank you.
My great pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Well, tonight, the aftermath of Hurricane Sally is coming into focus. The system has been downgraded to a tropical storm as it moves further inland.
That's right, Jen. And parts of Florida and Alabama are bracing for more devastating flooding. CBN's Dale Hurd has the story.
With Sally still dumping massive amounts of rain as the storm moved inland, rivers already swollen could create record flooding in parts of southern Alabama and the Florida Panhandle. In the storm's wake, millions along the Gulf Coast are now in cleanup and recovery mode. At least one person was killed in Orange Beach, Alabama. More than 250,000 people still without power in Florida alone. Sally made landfall as a Category 2 hurricane near Gulf Shores, Alabama.
I mean, just look at the sheer damage of this building. A whole second half ripped to the ground.
Docks and marinas were mangled. Trees and power lines snapped like twigs. And winds topping 100 miles per hour tore off the steeple of this church.
Evacuations could literally be in the thousands. So it's going to be a long time, folks, for us to come out of this thing.
Crews were rescuing hundreds of people trapped by rising floodwaters and a life-threatening storm surge.
We're in chest-deep water.
We just did not expect that. I think a lot of people didn't realize what this hurricane was going to do.
The rain was pouring through the cracks of the doors, but at a point it was just flowing in.
This 10-story apartment building was ripped apart, exposing the twisted metal inside.
The house was shaking. The winds were high. It was whistling like I never heard anything before.
Massive barges broke loose, one slamming into the Pensacola Bay Bridge and knocking out a section of roadway. Rising waters turned these streets into rivers.
Y'all look at that alligator that is right outside the window. He is going into the neighbor's driveway.
The flooding has since moved into Georgia. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
CBN's Operation Blessing disaster relief team is already answering the critical needs of Gulf Coast residents. If you'd like to give to Operation Blessing, you can donate to the Disaster Relief Fund just by calling 1-800-700-7000, or you can simply visit cbn.com.
And joining us now is Stacey Lamb, Senior Director of Disaster Relief for Convoy of Hope. Stacey, it's good to talk to you. We spoke with you again earlier this week. You are in Lake Charles, Louisiana. Tell us, what are you seeing there? Have you been affected by Sally?
We have not. We were, as it was coming, kind of this direction, we were wondering if we would feel the effects here, but we did not. It moved far enough east that there were no effects, not even a raindrop here in Lake Charles.
So I know you have teams in the Panhandle in Alabama and in Florida. Can you tell us what they're seeing in terms of devastation?
Yeah, so we had teams roll into the Orange Beach, Alabama area today with a load of resources. And obviously they're seeing damage and destruction, but somewhat different than what we saw from Laura a few weeks ago. A lot more flooding this time, as we all know. We've seen from the reports, and so they're seeing a lot of that. But we've got resources on the ground there, working with local churches to get help to the people that need it.
Stacey, as we just saw in Dale Hurd's package, there's a lot of flooding, so many people without power. What are some of the biggest needs that you're seeing, that you're trying to meet right now?
We're hearing water. A lot of the water systems either preemptively shut down or shut down because of flooding. So bottled water is a big need, tarps from roof damage, things like that. What we're hearing is a little bit different than what we heard from Laura, is that they feel like the power is going to be coming back on much more quickly than what we saw here. So some of the needs are a little bit different. Not near as many food needs and things like that, but more of the cleanup and those type of things.
Yeah. Well, out west, you also have teams in California working with the fires out there. What's the latest from your teams out there, Stacey?
Yeah, so on our response to the West Coast fires, we have over a dozen loads of resources either already on the ground or en route to various partners throughout both Northern California and Oregon as we respond to the fires out there, working with both evacuation centers for people that may be evacuated because they're waiting for the fires to clear, or in some cases where the fires have been put out and people are being allowed back into the areas. We also have church partners out there that are helping us distribute needed resources to those that are going back in and finding out if their homes are still there, what their neighborhoods are looking like.
Stacey, real quickly here, how does this season in terms of natural disasters stack up with others? It seems like we're seeing more and more of these devastating events.
It certainly does. I mean, this has been the year. You hear everybody talk about 2020, whether, COVID is obviously the huge thing of the year, but boy, the disasters they just keep piling up. And one of the things we're down to the hurricane season, as you may know, in the Atlantic Basin, they allow for 21 named storms each year, and we've already done 20. We're down to one last name. So it's definitely been a busy year, and there's still a long road ahead of us.
All right, Stacey Lamb with Convoy of Hope, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
When we come back, new warnings of an attack on the homeland, including a growing threat from within. We explain when Faith Nation returns.
Introducing the CBN Bible from CBN.com. Now, an easier way to study the Bible and grow in your faith. Highlight your favorite verse. Read separate versions at a glance. Click and read a commentary. Or cross-reference your favorite verse using the Strong's Concordance. All the right tools to study the Bible, all in one place. The CBN Bible, available at cbn.com/Bible or the iTunes App Store.
This is CBN Newswatch.
Thanks for joining us.
Watch breaking news, exclusive stories and programs, credible news reporting.
We show you what's happening in the world and how you can pray about it.
This is CBN Newswatch, because truth matters. Weekdays at 5 on the CBN News Channel.
Yes, right on time.
From Superbook.
Pepper's Pizza Palace is donating pizza for everyone today. Wait. I have big plans today.
Trust in God even when times are tough. He has a plan for your life.
Hey, we're gonna be late for the grand opening. My parents want me to help with this outreach thing, feeding the community. What am I supposed to do here? Superbook!
Join the Superbook Club and get Superbook The Birth of Moses, plus 2 copies to share with others, all for your gift of only $25.
Pharaoh ordered all newborn Hebrew boys thrown into the Nile River, and I have a 3-month-old brother.
The Birth of Moses. Yours for a gift of only $25.
What will you do the next time the soldiers come? I do not know, but I trust God has a plan for all of us.
Superbook Club members, free streaming for seasons 1, 2, and 3 is now available.
Welcome back. Tonight, lawmakers are gaining a better understanding of the biggest threats in the United States after receiving an annual assessment on Capitol Hill.
The heads of 3 agencies were supposed to testify today, but one was noticeably missing. CBN National Security Correspondent Eric Phillips joins us now with more on that. Eric?
Well, Jenna, that certainly caused some controversy. More on that in just a moment. But every year since 9/11, the House Homeland Security Committee has been holding this hearing to try to gauge the threat against the homeland, that is the domestic threat here in the United States. And while election security is on many minds right now for obvious reasons, the head of the FBI, Christopher Wray, made it clear what remains the #1 threat.
Terrorism remains the FBI's top priority, although the nature of that threat has evolved significantly since 9/11.
Specifically evolving to the homegrown kind due to sympathizers of groups like ISIS, as well as domestic terrorists, many driven by racist ideologies. So far this year, there have been 120 arrests for domestic terrorism.
Often lone actors, inspired by foreign terrorists, self-radicalized online and motivated to attack soft targets with readily available weapons.
Wray said there is hard evidence of the Russians attempting to influence the upcoming presidential election, and agents are working overtime to find and prevent that from succeeding.
Just recently, for example, we shared threat indicators with both Facebook and Twitter that allowed them to take down fake accounts created as part of a Russian disinformation campaign before those accounts could develop a broader following.
Cybercrimes keeping authorities busy, notably from China, hackers seeming to always be on the attack.
Including, I should note, companies developing COVID-19 vaccines, testing technology, and treatment.
Thursday's hearing was to also include testimony from Acting Secretary of Homeland Security, Chad Wolf, but Wolf was a no-show, causing some controversy.
It was not until last week
that the department informed the committee that Mr. Wolf would be reneging on the commitment to testify in anticipation of being nominated for Secretary of Homeland Security. I would note that despite his refusal to testify today, Mr. Wolf has spoken to the media. Friday, I issued a subpoena for his appearance in accordance with House and committee rules. Regrettably, he has chosen to defy the subpoena. That he would refuse to come before the committee after committing to do so should appall every member of this committee.
Director Christopher Wray said that violence against law enforcement is another growing problem. He says he has personally committed to calling every department that loses an officer so he can express his condolences. He says he understands that demonstrators are hurting, and he says they have reason to, but he wants people to realize that law enforcement is hurting too. John and Jenna.
Eric Phillips, thank you very much. Up next, conservative groups accusing big tech of bias and the effort to stop it.
When I came to Regent University, it's like the world opened up. I felt like I needed to advance my career and go back to school. Regent was a perfect fit for me. The Regent professors are world class. You are equipped. The focus of the faculty is on each individual student, whether it's online or in person. You become a part of Regent's family. You carry with you not just the content and the knowledge, but the confidence to understand that we can be significant in the world.
Regent University. Follow your path.
Nigerian Christians
in Iran are routinely arrested.
Catholic
Christians continue to suffer.
In times of trial and affliction, you need to know the truth.
One of the fastest growing Christian populations in the world.
Join Wendy Griffith and George Thomas for Christian World News.
Young people are the ones who are open to the gospel.
Powerful stories of suffering and hope that affect all Christians. Watch Christian World News, Saturday at 5 p.m. Get Protect Your Sleep and discover how to improve the quality of your life. A free DVD or booklet from the Christian Broadcasting Network.
If you're not a great sleeper, you can do things to make yourself a great sleeper. If you're already a pretty good sleeper, you can enhance your sleep and be even better.
5 leading experts help remove the obstacles between you and restorative sleep.
When you don't get a restful night's sleep, you wake up with an accumulation of stress.
Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to CBN.com to get your free DVD or booklet today.
Everything you do better with a good night's sleep.
You'll discover how food affects your sleep, how to put insomnia to rest, explore effective remedies for sleep apnea, and much more in Protect Your Sleep. Wake up to your best life and get Protect Your Sleep today. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to CBN.com to get your free DVD or booklet.
Welcome back. Well, social giants like Facebook, Twitter, and Google may deny it, but more and more conservatives say they are facing censorship.
That's right. Now an effort is coming together to fight it. Here's CBN's Paul Strand.
The Conservative Media Research Center announced a new alliance that's going to fight the big tech companies over the censoring of conservative speech, websites, and people, all the way up to the president.
If they can do it to the president of the United States, they can do it to anyone. And in fact, that is exactly what's happening.
This new effort, Free Speech America, will track and report this censoring on its website, censortrack.org.
Mother Teresa is now deemed hate speech. Is this hate speech?
And they'll work with lawmakers like Tennessee Republican Senator Marsha Blackburn, who has also been censored by big tech social media.
We are no longer giving them the benefit of the doubt, that what we are doing is holding them to account.
Who do the social media giants hit the worst?
Abortion is ground zero for the far left, and the right to life movement has no home in Silicon Valley. The pro-life movement couldn't advertise the Right to Life March.
One voice censored just this week by Facebook said his group's $4 million ad campaign to keep women's sports free of transgendered men had been censored. And not because its ads weren't factual.
They had been removing ads for being fact-checked to be false or mostly false. The new rating that they created was missing context. And so whatever that means.
These social media juggernauts also actively use their power to aid the left wing. One critic pointing to what Facebook's Mark Zuckerberg might well deliver for Joe Biden on Election Day.
an additional 450,000 votes that day just by sending out go vote reminders just to people who lean left.
Lawyer Kelly Shackelford sees this effort possibly steering victims to come down hard on these tech giants with crushing lawsuits.
All it takes is an attorney general in a number of these states to bring, there are fines per incident per citizen. And so this could be a huge way to really get them under control.
When you have this kind of censorship, you really are threatening the democratic process in this country.
And that's why we need conservative individuals and organizations to reach out to us, let us know when they've encountered problems with tech companies.
Moselle says the censorship is so widespread it will take years, maybe decades, to wage this war with the tech giants.
Paul Strand, CBN News, Washington.
Thanks, Paul. Coming up, a call to worship right outside the White House.
Christians around the world are standing with the Israelis. But why? In CBN's free magazine, Friends of Israel, you'll discover why Christians are supporting the Jewish state, how Israel is fulfilling prophecy as a light to the nations, and ways you can pray for the people of Israel. Israel needs the support of friends like you. Call now or go to cbn.com to get your free copy of Friends of Israel.
Heavenly Father, we do thank you for the work of your Spirit, Lord God, with this movement of getting the Bible,
yes,
Lord, into public schools.
Watch The Prayer Link, Tuesday nights at 6:30.
Hey, if you're tired and exhausted all day, you can't think clearly, and you really just need a cup or even a pot of coffee to get through your day, then join me, Dr. Josh Axe, for this new series where I'm going to teach you how to transform your diet and use essential oils and supplements to get a better night's sleep.
Get Protect Your Sleep and live your best life with innovative information from 5 leading sleep experts.
If you're not a great sleeper, you can do things to make yourself a great sleeper. If you're already a pretty good sleeper, you can enhance your sleep and be even better.
Discover a sleep-enhancing bedtime routine, how to put insomnia to rest, learn how to relieve pain that disturbs sleep, and much more in Protect Your Sleep.
Everything you do better with a good night's sleep.
Wake up to your best life. Call 1-800-700-7000 to get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
Don't miss out on this brand new series.
And finally tonight, since the 2016 election, one group has held prayer gatherings online and in person around the country.
And now the 24/7 National Strategic Prayer Call is set up in front of the White House for the next 50 days leading up to the election. They're calling it 50 Days of Blessing.
Jesus Messiah, Lord of all.
Organizers say the purpose is to pray for the safety and security of our president and nation and for the good news of the gospel of Christ to go out across America.
All right, well, that's going to do it for Faith Nation tonight.
Have a good night.